Rio Seco, Revere, the TPC course.
Okay, he's a family friend actually, and I sometimes refer him.
There were a lot of courses.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the committee meeting, starting with the Finance Committee. How about a roll call?
Frank Facciano.
I'm here.
Paul Anthony.
Here?
Robert Brooks. John Hayes.
Here.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hamburger.
Here.
Michael Stershik.
Here.
Jonathan Strauss. He's on the line. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. Again, welcome. Is there any public comment for today's meeting?
No, sir.
All right. Then we will go to the approval of the minutes from January and February. We got a
Second.
We're going to do both at the same time?
Yes,
So I'll
please.
move for both.
okay. Mike,
Second.
1 second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. Check. And I'll turn it over to Todd for the February financials.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I don't know, I was missing something. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Wanted to give an update on where we are for our last adjustments on our 2023 financials. As you remember, we were at 6 million and change when we originally presented in January. I think we got down to 4.5, and now our final number is somewhere around, call it 5.1. And the last adjustment, really the main last adjustment, was the adjustment of the airline settlement. We had an accrued a little over $1 million, and the number came out, I think we're at around 517. So again, trying to figure out those numbers back and forth, but this is where we think we are going to end that. Our auditors are actually on site today for doing their field work. They start this week, but you can kind of see all the adjustments in there. The last one, that 534,000, was the adjustment for the airline settlement. 550, we talked about some of those assets that we had to retire that we did in the end of last year, and then some of those other adjustments. So all total, we're about 5.1 million. Again, pretty much almost $3 million better than where we were for budget. Traffic. I think Tom had some kind of, little tidbit out there, him and Colin get those little tidbits about, hey, best traffic January and February since 2004, which is good stuff. So, rah, rah. But we still are not exactly where we thought we would be as far as budgeting. We're still below that number somewhat. And a lot of that is, some of that is our passengers, but some of that isn't also been in our planes, particularly on the cargo side. Some of that's starting to pick back up, but we did not get as much landed weight as we had budgeted in January, and February is starting to come back. But you can see, we didn't do quite as good in February's traffic as we did in 2020. We were off to a roaring start, so everybody remembers the beginning of 2020, we were like, hey, we're going to get that mill, and then COVID hit. So hopefully we won't have any challenges that prevents us from going too far in this year, but again, traffic off to a pretty good start. You can kind of see those numbers have almost flip-flop from 2020, where, you're flipping-flopping between Allegiant and others. You can see what happened in 2020 versus where we are now. And obviously, we talk about the bus traffic, which is moving along for us now. And we've been comparing our stuff to 2024, excuse me, 2019. This is probably going to start fading out of the 2019 comparisons and start comparing it year over year, because we're kind of out of the pandemic. Actually, we were talking about that probably at this time next year, we will be done all of our CARES money. Next year, the next year, we'll take our final draw at the beginning of next year, and that'll be it. So unless something else happens, there will be no more CARES money around this time next year. But you can see our numbers as far as throughput. All airports almost up 18. We're at 22. And then you can see our seats there and how, how we're, as far as our seats versus our throughput. Again, the throughput includes all TSA usage, so when you talk about, the bus traffic that goes through, that is counted in the throughput, but the seats are not. But we started to compare year over year, and this is versus 2023. So versus all U.S. airports, our throughput is up 14 and a half. All airports are up almost 10. You can see our seats are up half of what everybody else is, actually a little less than half. But as I always say, we use the seats that we get. That's why our throughput is doing much better than our seats. And again, you can see what's going on here. And then when you compare us to our peers, again, this is versus 2019, where we were really doing well versus our peers. And you can see that there. Our peers' average throughput compared to 2019 down 14%. We're up 22. Seats down 13. Our seats are up 12. But you start to see a different story when you compare year over year, that there's some of the recoveries coming to some of the other airports, where our recovery is started out a little faster. Some of them are starting to pick up. You can see versus our peers, our throughput is still doing a little bit better than our peers, but our seats are not. Our seats are up about 3.3, and their seats are up 11. So you can see what's going on there.
What's the budget carrier that we need to expire again?
Mellow. That was a
No. Okay, that's why we're starting to see their numbers improve.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yep. Which one did you ask about, John? I'm sorry.
Wilkes-Barre.
You can see about the
Yeah.
AVP.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right, talk about February again. We did draw $2 million of CARES, even though we didn't get the cash until this month, but we did accord it because we matched it against February expenses. You can see that our budget was actually negative without CARES. We were actually positive, 234,000. So we're off to a pretty good start as far as February, and January wasn't that bad, but February much better than January. 435,000 better than budget. One of the things we talked about last month was the snow, and I'll talk about that on the year-to-date stuff here. So year-to-date, you see most of our variance is attributable to February, but we're up pretty well, almost 600,000 versus budget. You can see that's 2.4, call it 2.4 is that we're actual, but 2 million of that is from CARES. The snow, we're up versus budget. I think we're up 57% year to date. We're at 87% of our full budget. We're at 444,000 so far year to date for snow. Hopefully, Mike said we're done for the year. So you heard him. You get that recorded. We're done for the year. If we're not, he said he's going to pay for it. I think that's what you said, right?
No, I didn't say that.
Didn't you say that?
I did not say that.
Well, Denver thought they were done. They just got 10 inches of snow last night.
And
65 degrees last week.
you heard that, right, Mike? You can kind of see what's going on here, where our net income is coming from. Obviously, of that 2.4-ish, approximately $2.4 million of net income, 2 million of it is coming from CARES, and you can kind of see what's going on. And it's always interesting to see the 10 and 11 numbers down there, airfield and terminal. You always hear me say, we're supposed to be break even, and that's the world that we try to aspire to. That's what we start out with. But the real truth of the matter is if the world was perfect, we would make those numbers exactly zero. But what we have to do is figure out not only the cost, but what others are prepared to pay for. That's what we deal with the settlement and everything else. If our costs are too high, folks say we're not going to pay. So it's that battle of what people are worth. And we're not saying they're not worth more. It's really a lot of times boils down to how much we can afford to pay. So that's a big part of it there. But you can see it down there in terms. And even we're going to have a discussion with Allegiant, I think it's coming up, about some of their ground handling costs. And it's really going to come down to who pays for the downtime. That's the issue, right? Because they're our own ground handling that we deal with. Who pays for the downtime? If we had an airport that was busy 24/7, a lot of these costs would be easier. But we have peaks and valleys, and you all know it's hard to get folks to work those split shifts. So we have a good amount of part-time folks, but again, who pays for the downtime? If you're the customer, not me. So that's the challenge that we deal with. Then breaking down our variances, net interest, we were, I mean, at this point it seems conservative, but, you know, our net interest is higher than what we had budgeted. I think we budgeted about $40,000 a month, so it's been higher than that, and we've been moving our money around to do the best that we can to kind of work some interest. We've been working with Fulton and some of the other banks to kind of figure out who's going to give us the best deals. We just had a discussion with them about, you want more money, you got to give us a better rate. So there's some negotiation back and forth. Obviously, those are below the line, that depreciation line there. As you remember, in the beginning when I talked about the adjustment that we made to last year's financials, one of them was retirement of assets, which means that we would have less depreciation for this year because those items are now off the books. But those are, you know, below, then you can kind of see all the items there. And the first two are kind of below the line. The other items, we talked about the icing and the snow, but the 4, 5, and 6 are really, a lot of that's just timing. So you don't know if that's going to pick up later in the year. So again, take the pluses when you can. We're only 2 months in, but you don't get too excited or too frustrated when one another is too early. Breaking down our numbers, personnel and non-personnel, and that personnel number, this is one of the first times that we've had, and a few times where what's really keeping that cost above, or should I say below 100% of the cost that we budgeted, was our benefits costs. Our salary costs are actually higher than we budgeted because of some of the overtime and some of the stuff that's going on in managing some of these shifts. But the mix of people that we have, as far as who's taking family benefits and some of those things, and the number of FTEs, we talk about FTEs versus full-time, the number of people taking full family coverage versus single coverage is less than what we budgeted. I tend to be more conservative, but obviously if we budgeted right on, we will be over budget at this point, at 11%. But you can always see, you know, again, there's one versus a budget. We try to be, I don't want to say ultra conservative, but we try to have some degree of cushion in there because of the ebbs and flows of the business. But you can see up significantly versus last year. Some of that obviously attributable to snow. Then breaking down our costs there, you can kind of see, you know, that full-time number there versus actual. That's a good number, but those FTEs are relatively close. And the FTEs don't tell you the cost of those people. So if you got higher cost people in there, then obviously you have more costs associated with it. But again, because of the, you know, should I say, the difference between actual and budgeted, on a full-time, we've saved some on the benefits, but we're picking up on overtime and some of the other costs. Then breaking it down by area, you can kind of see what's going on here, or department, should I say. This is our cash flow. We go 6 months out on this one here with a lot of the details here. The ones items marked in yellow are, again, what's changed this last month. This is the number I talked about here. I think we had 990 in there before, but that number, that's pretty close to the final number there, 517 just rounded. Some of the numbers that have changed since last time. Most of the time is our capital changes a lot because of the timing. You heard me mention the $2 million of CARES. Even though we submitted the stuff early in February, we didn't get it until this month, so cash-wise, it doesn't show until actually March. And then you can kind of break down restricted, contingency, and then, you know, our reserve after contingencies is 238. And then breaking that down here, when we do a little differently this month, just to show where we are in the period. This is unrestricted cash, and I know we had some discussion last month. We got into a little bit, and I guess we'll talk about it a little bit more. But this is not including any of our reserves. This is just unrestricted cash. So we have, you know, there's a bunch of things that are a part of that, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But this is our peers. So when we compare ourselves to our peers is just look at unrestricted cash. Because even though we call it bond reserve, everybody, it's O&M. Everybody calls it operating and maintenance. It's the same, everybody has operating and maintenance. But when you compare apples to apples, we're at 2.8, and It's a hard number to kind of compare in real time because of the way the data comes in. So this is 2022. They were at 208, and I think our number was 297 for that same time period. So it's kind of hard to compare it in real time. But you can see, obviously, our number is better than our peer average.
Just on that, Todd, though, we are, from last September, though, we are trending in the wrong direction, right? September was 336, we're down to 260.
Well, you're going to have, you know, you got to remember the ebbs and flows of some of our capital projects and then what we had budgeted. So some of it's timing.
Okay,
So, you know, that's what I said. If we get to a certain point when we got sound the alarm, you know, we're in trouble. And that's why we go through this every single month to make sure we're on the same page. But, you know, we had a bunch of cash. Perfect example. We got a bunch of cash in for things. We have some grants. We had that grant. We had to return. Some of those things we have, and then it's this timing. All right, we're going to spend it down. And obviously, our goal is not to make as much profit as we can make, and it's certainly not to have as much cash on hand as we can have. It's just enough that we feel like we can run the business and we can weather some storms. So there's a balance.
so really, you're saying it's a timing issue, it's really not a concern.
And if you go into the executive summary I put out, I always compare where our number is versus what we budgeted. And I think right now, I think we're almost identical for February with what we budgeted.
Right.
Like, almost within like, you know, 1 day's cash of where we budgeted. So some of it's timing, and again, if there's a big dip that we didn't expect, we're gonna talk about it beforehand.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
but this is just our peer average, still differently than we showed before. And then questions at this point. I'll stand up because I know we're gonna go into talking about the cash again, and I'll bring back that exhibit. We can talk about it a little bit more.
Does anyone have any questions about the financials from February? And we'll discuss it. All right, motion to accept.
I'll make the motion.
Paul, second. Robert, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Unrestricted cash on hand.
And I'll get this started, and then we can kind of throw it out there and have a discussion. So last month, we had some initial discussion about this, and this is really about how we present the information, and at what level, kind of your point, Paul, at what level should we be concerned? You know, at what level do we say, oh my God, we're in trouble? Certainly we don't want to get to 3 days cash on hand again. I don't want that nightmare. But to break down some of our this is unrestricted, so this is after restriction. Everybody understands the restrictions and things clearly. Like if we sell a property, it's AIP. We can only use it for AIP items. We have the boarding bridge money that we received from. We can only spend it on the boarding bridge. That's it. We can't spend it on salaries. We can't spend it on anything else. That's the only thing we can spend it on. That's why it's called restricted. This is unrestricted, and then we talk about our reserves. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. This does not include, because this does not include our debt service. Our debt service is paid, you know, we pay for our bonds. That is paid the beginning of January 1st and July 1st. I gotta get the dates down. And we pay that every month. So you see that in our cash flow, but that's not included in here as a reserve. That's set aside. We pay it every month. So that's never in this other than the monthly numbers that we show. So again, once we send it to them, they hold it until the payments are due, and then we send it to the custodian. So that's not included in that number. But we do include kind of that drawdown every month. We're consistent in that. Now, there's a couple things in our reserves that we talk about. Now, some of these are unofficial, some of them are official. We talked about our bond reserve, O&M, operating and maintenance. That is 1/6 of our operating expenses. That's the number. And if you read the way it is, it says on the 12/31, you must have 1/6. Well, technically, that's the way it's read. It's supposed to be on that date, 1/6. Now, the other part of it is it can only be used for operating fund deficiencies. That's the way the wording is in there. Operating fund deficiencies. Now, that means you better not be using it for your connector. You better not be using it for anything else. If you truly need to do that, you need to do it. Now, obviously, I think this is what we were talking about last time. If you tap into that, that's setting off alarm bells to somebody saying, whoa, 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 what's going on? That's probably the most important one there, that O&M. Then you go on top of that, we had, I forget when it was established, there's a $500,000 renewal and replacement reserve. And that is for emergency capital expenses. That was a board, something that was established many years ago. And that, again, is, they say, as of 12/31. That's just the way it reads. So that can only be used for an emergency capital expense. Now, we've never actually digged into it, but it's there as an actual reserve. Then, so you put those two together, then, a few years ago, when we were really focused on a lot of cash and then presentation of it, we added in the contingency reserve, which was 5% of the O&M, which is approximately somewhere around 17, 18 days of cash, just because you're dealing with percentages. And then on top of that, we said, hey, we want to have 60 days is kind of, so however you show it, bottom and top, if you add all those together, it's 146 days. Okay, that's what it is. So, you know, in my mind, I think when we started a few months back, I said, what I always have to remind myself is, all right, we got all these reserves, how much do we really have? It gets confusing. And for a new person coming in, they might not understand, like, well, how much reserves do you really have? What do you have? Or, like I indicated before, if it's Scott or somebody else comes in and goes, you guys are saying 60. Well, no, that's after this, and this. So we just want something, in my opinion, and again, this is a board thing, when we present the information, everybody understands what we have, and why it's important to have these things, and then to Paul's point, at what point are we entering the yellow line? At what point are we entering, we should be concerned? But again, the beauty of what we're doing, we started this, I think it was in 19, Eddie was a big person that brought up the contingency, which was a great thing. I mean, it shows the evolution of our management and board, and some of these things we brought to me. But the fact that we talk about it every month means there's no surprises. Because remember, we never used to even talk about it. It's periodic. It wasn't in this much detail. Every month we talk about where we are in cash, how much cash reserves we have, which is great. So we're always on top of it. So we're very intentional about talking about it. Again, 146, and if you go back to, because again, we've had a recent kind of, oh my God, we had COVID. So we went back and looked, and what was our number, right before COVID, and then what did we go as far as our lowest point? And that number, depending on how you look at it, was approximately about 200. 200 unrestricted, or the way we're doing it now, 60, that would be closer to 100. So depending on how you look at it, that's why I said it's confusing, whatever way you're talking about it. You're talking about the 100, which is after everything else, excuse me, at 60 after we talk about everything else. That number was 100, or if you just say all in, it was about, 100 and, like I said, pretty close, almost 190. So that's what we're talking about here, as far as our unrestricted cash. So for me, I think it's really in how we want to present this stuff. We talked about different ways of stack charts and different things, because again, we want the viewer, the new people that come in to understand what we have as far as reserves, understand it. Even somebody on a casual glance goes, all right, what do you got? Yep, because even any business, nobody wants 60 days cash on hand, I don't think. But for us, I think we want to have at least 6 months all in, and then we can talk about getting down. But however we want to express that, if we want to, we can talk about that from here. I think I've talked enough. I don't know if you want to take it from there, John.
Thought I heard someone have a question. Okay. This goes back to, as Todd had said, making sure that we've got sufficient cash on hand to cover emergencies and to cover various volatility cash flow. Paul, the point that you just made a couple seconds ago, and to make sure that we have that covered. So it was set, as Todd had said, we said 60 days, knowing we had the other levels of reserve. But we have turned over a lot of board members, and that institutional knowledge hadn't carried forward. That was just resonant in a couple of people. Then we have things like the reserve that we put in place that Eddie Lozano advocated for. Nothing guards against risk like cash, period. No hope of a grant, no hope of government bailouts or anything of that nature. Nothing guards against risk like cash. So one of the most important functions we as a board have is to manage the expectations in regard to cash and to manage the organization in regards to the cash. Now, I am a huge believer in terms of formalizing trigger points for discussion and potential action. and I emphasize potential action because, for example, if we drew a line here at 200 days, just to pick a number, and we're approaching 200 days, and it's because of a capital project for which we have future reimbursements, we talk about it, we're fine, we would talk about it anyway. But drawing a line requires that conversation, which I think is a good thing. You know, as we turn board members, as we turn the experience levels at the board, those trigger points are good corporate governance. Again, it doesn't require us to do anything. That's the key point. I'm not a fan of if we hit 200, then we have to do X. Because the if is a volatile if. Like I said, it can be we're spending our cash now and we're gonna get, what's the grant we're gonna get from the state in 2029? The RCAP grant.
That's a pretty optimistic
Well, if
projection.
we ever get our rec,
This decade here.
So that's a good use of the cash. That cash will eventually get here.
you sure about that?
I actually am, but it's worth a wager or two as to when. But, no, so you're going to have reasons that you're gonna have volatility in cash flow. Drawing a line and measuring that, and I agree with you, Todd, 60 days with all the others, it was too confusing for the typical observer to come in and take a look at it because they didn't understand
All the others.
everything that happened underneath that. So looking at it as you've got here and outlining those cash reserves, I think is a good approach. I like it. I am in favor of drawing a new line, again, for those conversations. I don't think we need to do anything. It's not a bylaws issue or anything of that nature. It's a board resolution that going forward, you're going to present this graph with a line at X days. And we use that as our new measuring point.
Okay.
That's the way that I would look at it.
And what do you want that line to be, I guess is the question.
Well, when Glenn, Tom, and I were talking the other day, my number was 180. And you said 6 months.
That's just
which
my
is
180. Yeah, that's the number I'm comfortable with.
Yep.
So John, what I'm hearing is, over time, this cash on hand kind of evolved, different boards, but,
Yep.
you said 6 months. Was that a recommendation or just like a thought?
60 days was what we went through, the drill we're going through now. We said 60 days as the standard to graph and to look at and to measure ourselves against.
Right.
But as Todd pointed out, with all the noise underneath that number, it's really not an applicable number anymore.
Yeah, I think
Replacing the
what
60.
John's saying is, we understood, the people that have been here, that 60 days was after
Right.
all the other things that we were stacking on top of it. What we're saying now is 180 all in
All in.
is our number. And then if somebody says, well, what makes up the 180? We can talk about that.
Yep.
But it's easier for that casual observer to go, we're at 180, we're in a good place. Because 6 months, everybody can get their head around. 6 months reserve gives you enough time, hopefully, to kind of, figure things out. I mean, if you remember during COVID, before we knew that there was going to be any kind of grants, we really started cutting back on our expenses right away.
Yep.
We reached out to the bondholders like, hey,
Yeah.
can we had to go in and kind of readjust that, modify that loan because we didn't know there was additional coming up. And that's the biggest thing right off the top. I mean, obviously you want to make sure you pay employees. That's a big one and keep the lights on. But you want to make sure you pay a debt service. I know you don't want bankers knocking at your front door. They usually don't come just by themselves. They usually bring other folks that aren't pleasant. So,
You don't want to knock on your front door.
there you go.
Yeah, so we can, in terms of this graph, Paul, one of the things I recommend we do is color code the bars
Okay.
with our larger reserve items. So you're looking at this and you can see the Eddie Lozano reserve, just for lack of a better term, et cetera.
The stack on.
So that you see the stack and you can see on the graph what it is. The other part is why I'm focused on the cash is that day's cash on hand at 73.8 per day. That was 55 about 4 years ago.
Yep.
So our daily cash requirement is significantly larger than what it was just before COVID.
Yeah.
So that makes it to me even more important
100%.
that we track this.
That leads me to wonder if we should be going more than the 180 days. And think about 200 days or 210 as a number. I'm just thinking out loud here, just because we know that almost $74,000 is not going to be that next year.
Yeah, but I think, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is all relative. So when we compare it, when we did the 55, it's still 55 times how many number of days. So if it goes up, hopefully it doesn't go up to 80, but say it's 80 next year, we would use 80 days as still our reference. It would be 80 times 180. So it's always going to be based on what the current cash.
Okay.
So it is relative. It's not a static, hey, we need $10 million. It's, we need whatever that cash per day is times
Gotcha.
180
Okay.
days. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. I can live with that. Yeah.
But that's a great point, because again, it's not going to go down.
No,
No,
It's not going to go down.
expenses never do.
So,
John, you know, you talked about a resolution, so at 180 days, we would just have a deeper conversation?
Correct.
Right,
Why?
not
Not
a
a
mandate.
requirement of action.
Right.
Yeah, I want to stay away from that because, again, you're going to have legitimate reasons for that
Well,
volatility.
I understand that
Yeah,
now.
I want to make sure that we get that covered.
and if you remember what we were doing before, I mean, it was a different graph. We had that 60-day line there.
Yep.
And if you go back, and just to kind of give you a feel, I think it's on this one. Oh, I don't have it on this one, but actually here. See that number down there, that 238? That is the number we used to show you on the other graph, right? That was after the reserve. That's why it gets a little confusing. This one is 308. So it's before all those reserves. So that's why it gets a little confusing. So it was 237, but we would show you that little line that says 60 days.
Yeah.
Now we're saying 308 was a higher number, but the number is up to 180. So it's just a little bit more transparent and easier to follow. That's all we're trying to do, make it
And
easy.
that's why I think we should color code the
Color code
bars
the stacks.
to the different reserves so that it's clear as to what comprises that 308.
Okay. And then, like I said, we'll just show this going forward, and the only difference will be, this will be the graph, obviously we'll color code it, and then we'll include a line somewhere between 150 and 200 that says, here's our kind of, you know, new line that we don't want to go below. But again, the other chart will continue to show this number here at 238. I mean, unless we don't want to show it that way. But this is the things we're talking about. That 5 million and change is the O&M bond reserve that we refer to. That contingency is that 5% Eddie Lozano reserve that we talked about. So those are things that are already there before we get to that number there. So it's always kind of like, well, what do you have? Well, some of it's under the mattress, some of it's in the bank. You know, it's just, what do we have? And this is just making it a little bit more transparent, I hope.
Do we need to formalize this by motion, or is this something that we could just ask Todd to do by consensus of the
think-
board?
I prefer it in a motion, and I'll make the motion since I drove this, but I would prefer it, again, not for action, not for specific action, but for more material discussion. So the motion would be that I move that we evaluate cash as Todd has projected here, allocate each of the bars in terms of their individual components, and that we draw a line of 180 days cash on hand, that if, as we approach and as we potentially breach that line, we have a more in-depth conversation, if necessary, as to the uses of cash and the potential sources of cash coming up to cover the potential uses.
Second.
Well, that one, Sylvette.
That's why it's recorded.
That's a good idea.
All right. Good discussion, thank you.
Yep.
Any?
That's a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll
Any?
second that.
Anything from me? Okay. Thank you.
Vote?
All
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent.
In 1986, a wise old banker told me that cash in hand is the noblest work of God. And in 40 years, almost 40 years,
Almost.
getting old.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's true. I can't say that? Okay, shoot. That better?
Any new business? Good. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mike, Robert, we're adjourned.
Okay, thank you. We roll right into the,
I have to go today, guys.
okay.
Frank.
Okay, we can roll right into the business committee. Okay, Colin, we're good to continue? Okay. First off, Bobby, very sorry about your dad.
Thank you. I want to thank the board for the flowers that were sent and the phone calls that I received. I really appreciate it, and you know, part of life, but I appreciate everything that the support did. Thank you
Yep,
all.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the business committee meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. Sylvette, can you call, please?
Justin Grimshaw, Ann Baum, Don Gottschall,
Here.
James Irwin, Glenn Reedman, Chris Worley.
Okay, we do not have an agenda, or a quorum.
We do with you, sir.
I can count, can't I, since I'm subbing for Justin?
Yeah, you're chair.
Okay, okay, then we do have a quorum. Okay, perfect. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Thank you. Go through the action items. First is approval of the meeting minutes from the January 25th and February 22nd, 2024 meetings. Entertain a motion to approve. There's a motion from Don, second by Glenn. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next is approval of the Air Carrier Incentive Program amendment. Aaron, you've got that one?
Thanks, John. So, it's been about 18 months ago, we updated our air carrier incentive program. And when we did it, we knew some new policy was coming from FAA, so we made it pretty close to mirroring what was coming out, but we took our best guess as to where they were gonna be. They did publish that guidance in December, so at that point in time, we just decided to update again to take advantage, honestly, of some of the things that were in there that we don't have in our program currently. So you can see there, a couple of things that we have. We're now able to incentivize upgauging of aircraft, so we weren't able to do that before. You weren't able to base any of your incentives on size of aircraft. Where that hopefully will help to play in is as we try to work with our three major carriers, American, Delta, United, to kind of upgauge from the 50 and 70 seat regional jets to start looking at more of the mainline aircraft, the Airbuses or the 717s, things like that. We were able to give them incentive now to go larger. We did make ours, it has to be at least a 25% increase in seats for them to achieve that incentive, to be eligible to receive that incentive. So they can't go from a 50 seater to a 70 seater. We want to make sure that we made it, a big enough jump so that it made sense. So, and then the other thing we're able to do now is incentivize seasonal service. So also looking at that, basically, that kind of plays more into the low-cost carriers to Allegiant. They do a lot of seasonal service and things when they start. There's a lot of times they'll do things just through the summer months and things like that. So we're able to do a little incentive on there. And again, now it's got to be at least 3 months of service and less than 7 for it to qualify as seasonal service.
In terms of the target destinations, we've got Allegiant's requirement that the destination be out and back in 1 day.
Yep.
Okay, so would Dallas qualify? Vegas, we know, does not. Phoenix, I assume, does not. What about San Juan?
It should.
So
Down and back?
on those target destinations, Dallas honestly would probably not be an Allegiant destination. That's probably more of an American that we'd be looking at.
Okay.
But I think they could definitely do that. They could make it for Allegiant if they decided to go that route.
Yep.
Vegas is like just at the ragged edge of not being able to, it works on a very perfect day, so they're never going to do that. They are working on trying to find ways. I know that they're sort of motivated to try Vegas from here as well. So I think if they can figure out a good way to do it, they would. Phoenix, I believe, does work, but it's also close. So that one's not quite as tight as Vegas, but it's close. Then San Juan is another one San Juan's farther than everybody thinks it is. I think that's the thing. Nobody realizes how far, but it can work.
But it's like a 3-hour flight from Philadelphia, so
Yeah.
couldn't be that much further from.
No, it's not. So, but you're also talking block time. So it's gate to gate. It's not necessarily just flight time. So again, you have to make sure you're keeping that in there. But it definitely can work. It's definitely something. The problem right now with San Juan is that they're not operating at all out of San Juan today. Allegiant is that they had for a period. They pulled out. They've talked about it. I think if they go back in, we certainly will be on that list of cities that they would try it from. So we'll definitely keep that conversation going with them as well as others. And the good thing about this is those target destinations have worked, because since we did it last time, we've taken 2 off there already with Denver and MCO. Those were 2 of our original target destinations, and we now have service to both of those. So it shows that it is definitely working. Air service incentives are never going to be the reason people start a route or start service. Basically, they're sort of that piece that pushes somebody over the top. They're looking at these routes already. If they make sense, or if they're sort of teetering on whether they want to try it or not, this is what pushes them over the top. It's never going to be. I think there was a time when airlines would probably take these incentives and give it a shot, even if they weren't sure. That doesn't happen too much anymore. They don't want to come into a destination or start service and have to stop it. So this is it's just that sort of that final push. So happy to answer any questions, but those were really the major changes. Certainly looking for an approval on this.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the aircraft incentive the air carrier incentive program.
So moved.
A motion by Glenn, second.
Second.
A second by Don, so we'll open it up for questions. What was the cost of the program over the period?
Idea what we've spent on incentives, I mean, it's typically, I mean, some of it's fee waiver, so that stuff, that doesn't technically cost us anything when we waive fees, airfield or terminal fees, it basically just reallocates to the other carriers.
Okay.
The marketing is what really costs us, and I wanna say,
It's about 10,000 a month right now.
yeah, so that's with what we have, we're spending about 10 grand a month
Okay.
on the marketing incentives.
Marketing is 28 for the year.
You said help picked up 2 good routes right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, I mean, I think we've all at least known that MCO was gonna do well if they ever tried it, that's like the biggest no-brainer. Denver's surprised, we knew it would do good, but I never in a million years thought it would do as well as it did, as quickly as it did, so.
What's the load factor been on that? Do we have individual route factors?
We do, I don't know the last time,
Individual, we can get that.
Okay.
load factors are tough because they trail, we can pull them, they trail 6 months behind,
I
so.
probably know 3 dozen people who've taken that flight.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's.
Just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say that the most interesting thing was the return flight on our original, on our inaugural flight, the return coming back had like 155 people on it, I think. I don't know how they got there, you know, like, so I said, like, are there people from Denver coming this direction, you know, so.
There are.
That's what was amazing to me, that there were that many on the return, you know,
Yeah.
the outbound was.
Some of the people I
one.
know are people that live out there that have family back here.
Sure, yeah,
So,
so, I think that's been a slam dunk, which also helps us as we're talking to Allegiant about other western destinations like Phoenix and Vegas and things. I think they now see they can do more than just Florida from here and make it make sense.
Yep, agreed. Other questions?
How?
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Just a question, Boston, would that be a legacy carrier?
Yeah, Boston's a really tough one, to be honest with you. It probably would be a legacy carrier. I mean, Allegiant does do some service into Boston, but I think we are too close to Boston for Allegiant to decide to do it.
So Boston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Detroit are all would be legacy.
Yeah, and we have Detroit in now
The
that,
rest would be Allegiant.
more than likely. I mean, not 100%, but more than likely.
You didn't have Key West on
No, that's a tough one. Until they need a longer runway in Key West, and then we can do it. That's the problem there. A lot of weight penalties when those aircraft come out of Key West, exactly.
That was my question,
That was the
same exact question, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have the TNC rideshare agreement.
That's me also.
That stays with you. Okay.
We've been working through this, we've been talking, I know budgeted this year, we had an increased budgeted for our TNCs. That TNCs are basically Uber and Lyft at this point, and we're actually working with, there's a new company out there that we're working with as well now that's
Who's that?
based out of Philly. They are called GoFish, they're based out of Philly. They're operating in Philly, they're operating at Harrisburg Airport now, I know, talking to us, so startup, we'll see how far they make it, but they're actually reviewing the agreement now, and hopefully we'll start operating as well, so we'll have a third option for folks looking for rideshare. So we're gonna increase, we haven't increased this since 2017, so we looked at it, we went out to LNAA, who handles all of our, basically, they're the clearinghouse that handles all our transactions with these carriers, and looked for what the average was for airports our size. We figured $2.50 is about average, a few that are a little higher, a few a little lower, so raising our rate up to $2.50. You want to scroll down a little bit, so thank you. So that's the biggest change, is raising that to $2.50. The other change is just, we sent this out to our insurance broker to ask him to look at the insurance liability limits, and they upped those a bit as well. But then we decided, when we look at the agreement, it's an old agreement that we have that just didn't really fit any form of anything we're doing today, so we just started over and wrote a whole new agreement. Most of it is just language and sort of style changes with these substantive changes on the insurance liability and the cost per trip.
Curiosity on the insurance requirements, does Uber carry that policy? Do they ensure their drivers carry it? How does that work?
I believe Uber carries that policy.
Okay, so that's,
Yeah.
entertain a motion to approve the TNC rideshare agreement.
So move.
Motion by Glenn, second.
Second.
Second by Don. Okay, open it up for questions, additional questions, I should say. And you're comfortable with the 250 being the right number with the
Yeah, that's, I
research
mean,
that
Todd
you
and I
did?
talked about this, that is pretty much right smack in the middle of the airports, sort of other like-sized airports.
Okay.
And that is, I think he's got it up there, pickups and drop-offs, so some airports are only charging one way, we're doing both. We actually started out, I think we were only charging for pickups.
Yeah, we were, initially
And
with
then we
just
started
pickups.
charging for pickups and drop-offs, and now we're just raising it to 250.
How do we guard against the illegal pickup, that we don't get paid?
It's okay.
It's all
We
geofence.
got a geofence for.
So it's, yeah,
Okay,
so when they're operating, we have a geofence around the airport, we know where they're coming, we even have a staging area, so we know where they're staged, and, you know, we can see all of that.
okay.
So in the beginning, it was all honor system, basically, so
Love
we're
that.
probably getting paid for 10% of our trips at that
Yeah.
point in time, if we're lucky.
Okay.
The other thing we did put in this agreement too that I did not list is, we can adjust that rate now by just a resolution of the board going forward. So if we decide next year that it's time to up it again, instead of redoing a whole rate, a whole new agreement or even an amendment to the agreement, it's basically like we do our rates and charges for the airlines now, we can adjust that rate by ordinance, by resolution, I should say.
Revenue impact. I think our Uber, I mean, it's not significant, but, I mean, it's becoming more and more. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know, 25% obviously is what we're increasing the rate by. What's our Uber, a couple 100,000 a year, maybe 150 total for the year? I think about 150 total right now for the year, around that number, so 25% more. I think we budgeted about 5 for parking and Uber, so 25% is obviously more than we budgeted, but, it's, the unfortunate thing when you talk about Uber and Lyft is, what are they taking away from you? I mean, I'd rather have them parking a lot, but, we'd rather get something rather than nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
And this does not cover taxis, or this does cover taxis?
Okay. We have an exclusive with one taxi provider still, correct?
Yeah, we still have it with your way.
That's gonna be my next question. Are there any taxis anymore than we have out?
Not many, not much.
Yeah.
That's why we have the exclusive, the only way we can get anybody.
Yeah, we had to do that because during COVID, nobody could get anything here.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So it really is pretty much Uber Lyft is the way these people are traveling.
Yep. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, approval of the parking structure design consultant. Oh,
We have white smoke.
Morning, everybody.
they cost a fortune, they never make any money.
So what we're looking for here, quick little discussion, is to approve a parking structure design consultant that we selected through the RFQP process. So a little background, we requested qualifications and proposals due November 3rd last year. Just as a quick recap, we do the RFQP process anytime you might get federal or state funding. It's part of the process in terms of the consultant selection. It's qualifications-based, not price-based. So we had 6 consultant firms, teams that submitted from the RFQP. We reviewed it internally with our program manager as well. Whittled it down to 3. And again, I know Dawn's on the line. Thank you for participating, Justin and Jim as well from the business committee. March 19th did in-person interviews with 3 of the shortlisted firms you see here, AECOM, IMEG, and Walker, as well as some staff members. Had a score sheet to really grade them based on the presentations, and what was provided was basically a standard list of questions that they all had to answer. So again, we were comparing apples to apples. As we went through the interviews and then had discussion afterwards, and then ultimately scored all of the firms, we agreed on AECOM scoring the highest and the recommended consultant to move forward with the proposal to do the design. If you want to scroll down a little bit so that. So again, just some things to consider. Really, it was the scores are really close between Walker and AECOM based on what they presented. They both presented very well, answered the questions very well. They both have a breadth of experience in parking structures. Really, why I believe AECOM scored very well, and Don, you can chime in if you like. Is AECOM, I think, in general, has more of an overall team that has experience working here with LNAA. They also teamed up with leading parking consultant THA, which has done local work here as well, Bethlehem, Air Products, and some others. So I think that helps the team as well. And in terms of the team is also, the permitting side, because that's a big thing of the project and the timeline that they talked about. So really what we're doing here, looking for, is to approve AECOM as the parking structure design consultant, but really the next step will be a design scoping meeting, taking a look at what that's going to be, the cost, and how it fits in with our budget that we had included in our capital program, and then confirming, you know, the site selection and really the schedule and timing moving forward. So happy to answer any questions, or Dawn, if you have anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I think you did a good job. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, to entertain a motion to approve the parking deck design consultant.
So moved.
Motion by Don,
Second it.
second by Glenn. Okay, open it up for questions. First one out of the gate, how do you see the timeline going in terms of evaluation of the project, decision to go forward, contracts being issued, construction, et cetera? What, at this point in time, what's your best guess?
So probably the first steps in terms of the scoping, working through the initial items, maybe 2-3 months at the most. Originally in the schedule, we'd assumed an 18-month design, really, which included the permitting component. So I think once we get the scope, we'll know that specific timeline narrowed down based on where we are. Because the other thing with that AECOM kind of touched on is where our MPDS or stormwater permits are with other projects and how this could maybe fall in line with that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still looking at a few years, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't finish design this year.
How big a deck do you think we're gonna end up looking at?
I think we're targeting around about 1,000 spaces, thereabout.
But again, that'll come into the,
Oh, it went less.
well, that'll come into, again, the cost versus capacity, you know, all those components. So
Big chunk of
a lot,
change.
there's a lot more to do after this point, for sure.
How many parking spots do we have out in the lot now?
I mean, all told, with the overflow, about 1,900, but just in the main lot, it's about 1,700 spaces.
And we would take up most of the main lot, I would think, with the deck.
Yeah, so part of this is going to be confirming site selection, because we did a preliminary site selection survey and kind of looking at 3 principal locations. And so now that we have a design consultant diving back in to make sure we know where we want this to go, and then obviously phasing, you know, if we're putting it there, is taking away spaces while you're constructing. And so it's looking at
Planning
all
for
of
that.
those different sites and pros and cons for each.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's still some confirmation work we have to do there before we can jump into a design. But ultimately, I think, you know, all the forecasts we're looking at, even from the master plan, are showing 2028, we're out of parking. So.
What's the going rate these days per spot for a parking deck? The number I've got in my mind is 10 years old at least.
Yeah, I know we updated that recently. I'd have to go back and look, but it was less than I think what we originally presented.
Okay.
Probably a year and a half ago, based on current numbers. And part of it is talking with contractors and teams of, you know, more of the precast design versus some odd shape, you know, that increases cost. So we can get that specific, but I know it's been updated. I just don't know if it's offhand.
Any other questions, any other comments? And anyone who's not a committee member, you can still, you're here, you're on the phone, feel free to ask. It's going to be interesting.
Exciting.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Remember, Tom, 2027.
Probably not far off.
Okay, capital projects update.
Great. Thank you. So just a few minor updates on some items that actually were re-included since we didn't get to give an update last month. That was really work that was done late January, February. But really, the Runway 624 program, we're really getting ready to kick off here out of the winter shutdown here, beginning of April. Again, weather pending. But you can see on the left, kind of in the light yellow, is really what we're going to hit on first with the blast pad on the 6 end and working on the shoulders, working our way to the 2-4 end as well. Just some updates, I think we maybe mentioned this last time, is working with the FAA. They're actually replacing the Runway 6 Mauser, which is the approach lighting system. So they're doing that as a separate project, but they're coordinating with us in terms of the construction timing. So again, we've been coordinating with the carriers that utilize the instrument landing system is really what you use in inclement weather to land. So obviously any impact there, they want to be made aware of.
So if you could back up.
Sure.
So you say, for the Mauser system, continuous outage on approaching flights. What does that do? Does that restrict the use of that runway at night? That restrict, how does that outage work in terms of airport operations?
So all it does, it raises the visibility minimums from 1/2 mile to 3/4 nautical miles. So again, when you get into those really inclement weather days with the rain, fog, that's when it can have an impact.
Okay.
But generally, the one thing we actually did look at, talking with the tower, and I know even working with a lot of our carriers that utilize the Cat 2 approach, which drops the minimums even further. Between April and November, talking with the tower, there's been no weather events that met the Cat 2 requirements. So the time to do it really is in the summer versus the winter, fall, early spring.
Does that impact night operations at all, or is that not an issue?
It would be the same.
Same.
Same thing, just on the visibility, if,
Okay.
you know, we had
You can see
severe,
the
severe
runway lights are
limitation
good.
on disability, right?
Okay.
No, that's a good question. So this we wanted to put in based on what we've done, but just kind of a look. So the state does a pavement management index program that really grades the pavement at airports all across the state. You can see on the left, back in 2016, the last time they did it, you can see runway 624 was the orange, yellow. You can see kind of our air carrier and some areas that were red, the T hangars at the time. And then they actually just did one last year, 2023, updated it. Again, you can kind of see all the work that we've done on 624. The T hangars, we're working on some of the air carrier aprons now, but even other things that were added like hangar 11 and some of the taxiway work that was done just this last time. So just a little update to kind of see the progression of the project that we've been working on. Package 4, again, it's been a winter shutdown, looking to work on the punch list items this coming April. Get that project completed and closed out. The majority of the work is done, just work on the punch list. Package 5, again, looking to start up here in April. As I mentioned, working with the carriers and the timing, but really that's working through the shoulder construction on that portion as well. Boarding bridges, a couple of pictures. This is actually boarding bridge 3 that's been manufactured, that's basically waiting to come here. Looking at the schedule, mid-April or mid to late April. So coordinating on that. The contractor's actually on site doing some of the foundation prep and work right now in that gate 3 area. And the only really thing to note is the PLC controls, really with some of the timing of the remaining grant funds, is we're kind of getting as far as we can, and then we're really going to wait based on the funding and or budget in terms of timing for the bridges probably next year. So just as a heads up there. We kind of just talked about this, but again, we recommended AECOM for approval, and as Tom alluded to, again, we talked about 18-month design, do 3-year construction, that brings you around July 2028. So still trying to progress that forward. New project that we added that was from our CIP is replacing air handler unit number 4. It serves the west side of the facility over here, right in front of the Allegiant check-in counter and the police station downstairs. It's a vintage 1974, give or take, from when the terminal was built, but really replaces the unit, the ductwork, VAV boxes, lighting, ceiling grid, you name it. So we had put it in our budget for around $794,000. We're working on getting some quotes right now, bring back to the board in April. Because this is primarily an equipment purchase, again, working with the solicitor in their offices, we're looking to utilize cooperative purchasing with some of our vendors that we use to perform the project and meet the requirements that way. In terms of timing, what we're also trying to do is to order the equipment basically now to be ready really in the fall, just because of the lead time. So that's part of the other piece to that. So more to come on that. Another CIP project we've talked about before, but really the comprehensive paving with the contractor working on the Jet Bridge 3 area. We wanted to get the pavement up to snuff as well. So our on-call parking or our on-call paving contractor, Barker & Barker, is working on that. And you can see some of the areas that are in need of help out in that area. And again, this was supposed to be last month, but just a quick little update. We've talked about the property demo. All of the 15 abandoned and demolished structures have been completed. You can see in the red. The next one that we'll be talking about in the future is really the government building, but you can see over the last year, been pretty busy taking down the structures. So again, a quick recap. Over on Race Street, that was completed. The Tapeworks property, that was, again, a long time coming. Some other properties that we had acquired that were sitting vacant, again, for safety reasons, wanted to take them down. And then, as you probably recall, some other demo items, the elevators, escalators, Hangar 7 AHU, and then actually a trailer garage that we were doing for Air Products.
With the property demolition, have we found anything in the demolition we didn't expect? Buried oil tank or anything like that that no one knew about?
No, because we had done some of the pre-surveys and coordinating with permitting. So yeah, so far for those are good. So just kind of our summary, probably more to add over the next couple of months with some of the projects, but you can see where we are with like the first one, package 4. Again, we've spent just about all the money, but we're capped at that 90% until we do the final closeout with the FAA, which is why we track it that way. Again, added the air handler unit as we move forward, and adding projects as we go. And then I think I showed this maybe a couple months ago, but just to kind of highlight as things progress what we're adding. So the two kind of yellow on the bottom are ones that we just talked about adding. So the next couple months you'll probably see some of these other green ones start to pop on the list that we'll start talking about. But that's really it. Happy to answer any questions.
A lot going on. I'd entertain a motion. Oh, we don't need a motion. This is a report only. So open it up for questions. Hearing none, the only question I've got is, and you track it in terms of slide and the grants piece and how that factors into overall cost. That goes back to your point, and Todd's as well in terms of some of these projects hitting when they hit and spending down some of the cash.
Correct. Yep.
So, okay, good.
I had a question about the jetways.
Yep.
They accommodate multiple size aircraft, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it accommodates the full fleet mix that the current ones do, basically from the smaller regional jets to the Boeings and A320s that are accommodated here now.
Can it get to a bigger, I don't know that we'd ever have anybody flying anything bigger than a 737 or a 320 in, but can it handle a bigger plane than that?
It can, yep. There's some potential restrictions in terms of wingtip clearance, but I know the terminal was designed for 757s. Not really flying anymore, for commercial, but it could accommodate those.
Out of curiosity, with Legion adding the 737s, how has that worked in terms of integrating? Do they fly them out of here, or are they still just flying Airbus?
Not at this point.
I haven't heard any updates on when they'll start.
I don't think, they don't have any in service yet, I don't believe.
Yeah, and you got everything going on at Boeing right now.
Delivery of any
Probably an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Great. All right, thanks. Okay, marketing update. Your annual presentation.
We're gonna do a little tour here. I'm gonna be the bus driver, she's gonna be the tour guide, so.
I don't think so.
These up, and this up.
All right.
Okay, welcome back to the board.
Thank you. It's been
Absolutely.
a while. It's so great to see you all again.
Yep.
So today we wanted to talk about a new company that we've been working with. We started working with them in January. It's called Airport One, and their product is Fly My Airport, which is a search to book direct engine on your website. So Darren's gonna kind of do a little tour and show you how it works. Gotta put the dates.
Oh. Like I said, I'm not a good bus driver, I just thought I was gonna do it.
Should have switched.
She's tried about 10 times.
It's gonna be interesting. He's flying out today. Let's see what shows up.
So this company works with Kayak, so it takes you through Kayak to kind of show you all of the destinations, all of the flights the options that you have from flying from Allentown to Boston or wherever you want to go. So there's different options. They have a best option, a cheapest option, and just go back up.
Quickest.
The quickest.
We're on the best now.
Best. So, you can choose which airline you want to fly with, if you,
This integrates Allegiant, right?
Yep, we can show you one of the Allegiant destinations as well, if you'd like. We just wanted to pick, like a generic destination.
This is considered a direct book then?
Um,
I get scared when I get onto
So-
these websites.
So,
I wanna be
So it's
direct, 'cause
not-
you can't
It
change.
takes you, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but it will take you to the airline page.
Okay.
So if I click, I can go ahead and show you, like, if I click here now on the Allegiant.
sometimes they take you to, other booking engines, so try and click a different one, Darren. But most of the time it'll take you to, yeah, that one should be.
There you go, that
Yeah.
will take you right to the Allegiant website. So when you click on it and you do the search, it takes you out to the airline website.
And then you book directly on their website.
And just, just to jump in quickly, what we really loved about this program, we've had booking engines on our website in the past. What's great about this is, and we're gonna show you next, is that even though they're going out to kayak and into the airline website, we get all that data back. We know what people are doing. We know we know when people are actually booking tickets and all this. That's what makes this a great product. It's.
And you know what they're searching for, so that can factor into the incentive program.
Yeah, it gives us all kinds of new information to go out, and like I said, we're gonna walk you through it. It gives us, as we're doing air service development and even some of our marketing, things like that, there's a lot of data that we now collect, which we've never been able to do before, because typically these types of booking engines, as soon as they click and leave your website, they're gone, and you don't know what they did from there. So that's what we really love about this. So,
Put on,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Darren, put on your calendar 7-8 months out, after this goes live, to come back and walk us through the data you've collected
Yeah,
and
we
how
will.
we can utilize that. I'd be curious to see that.
We're gonna show you today just about 60 days worth of data since we actually started it. So, yeah, we definitely we'll do, the next time we do a marketing update, we'll come back and show you what it looks like from there. It'll be a much different picture. So I guess you're ready to jump into the back end.
Yeah. So this is the dashboard. Do you wanna?
Go back to,
We're gonna go back to the day that we started, that we launched Fly My Airport on our website. So it's been 2 months to the day.
there we go.
Okay. That number looks a little crazy because we started at 0, so don't pay attention to that. But the surge ratio is up 61%, and they base that off of the amount of searches that we get on Fly My Airport on our website, based off of the 2022 employments. They don't have the 2023 data yet, so that was about 456,000, but they're doing it based off of the month, so we've only been live for 2 months and we're up 61%. So if you want to scroll down.
Alexa, what did they say the target is typically about 130% or so?
Yeah, the target's in between like 130, 150. I mean, it's awesome if you get to 200, but that's their top. So then the daily visit trend, you can see it shows us every day if the ups and downs of how many people have visited the Fly My Airport page. So you can see at the beginning it's low because we didn't do anything to market it quite yet. We just had the widget up on our website. So we had 358 visits the first day, and then it just shows us how many people were visiting. And the green line is just the average. It kind of shows the slope of the visits.
So these are visits, not necessarily searches.
Correct. No, they're searches, but it's like visiting.
So 385 people did a search
Yep.
on the site on day one.
Yep.
That's higher than what I thought.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you see it's kind of going down and then up and then down. Right now it's just the slower time in booking. We expect it to shoot right back up once the summer months start to hit and people are planning their summer travel. So then we'll go to the purchase funnel. So as you can see, it shows all of the visits from the last 61 days. So we've had 33,442 visits. And then from that, we've had 41,244 searches, which is showing how many people search different destinations. So it's a little more than the visits.
So I do 2 searches on a visit, on 1 visit, 2 searches.
Yep. And then the provider clicks. So we've had 5,415 people go from searching for a flight to going right to the booking website, which is pretty cool. And then immediate purchases, it shows that we've had 171 immediate purchases. So that's not technically the number of flights that are booked. It only shows the purchases made. So they estimate, Fly My Airport estimates about 3 tickets booked per 1 purchase. So if we did the math on that, it would be about 513 flights booked since we've started, which is pretty cool. I think that's a lot of.
How does that stack up with what your expectations were coming in?
Honestly, I didn't even know what my expectations were coming into this. I knew that this would just give us a lot of extra data, but I'm very pleased with what we've seen so far. And when I met with Fly My Airport a few weeks back, they said that we're doing a little bit above average than what they expected, and they expect us to start gaining more traction. So to kind of market it, I guess, we've been doing a little bit organically on social media, and then we also work with Fly My Airport, and they do a little bit of marketing help with us. In the future, we are planning on adding the links into our digital ads to kind of steer people more to book their flights right there. But we don't want to link it direct to the Fly My Airport site because we still want people to come to our website and look around.
So we're working on getting that widget that you saw originally on the homepage. That widget will be on all of our destination pages too. So when we go out and do a digital ad, for a destination, they click on it, they'll see that widget right when they get there so that we can drive them to the booking engine.
Okay.
We're gonna skip that one and go to the next one down because there's almost the exact same
Yeah.
graph farther down that I actually think is more effective. So we're not gonna talk about this one up on top there right now.
So on Fly My Airport, you have the ability to book flights, packages, cars, and hotels. Obviously, the majority of people are here for booking flights, but as you can see, we've had 4 car rentals, 1 hotel rental, and then 166 immediate purchases for flights, which is just a breakdown of the products that are offered on Fly My Airport.
Do we get paid anything on those bookings?
No, there's no commission on this.
Okay.
No, and then, so the conversion trend, it kind of just shows you another way of, it's another way of showing you the funnel. So you can see the searches, and then the provider clicks obviously are a little smaller than the searches, and then the provider click efficiency, just a little line graph to kind of show it in a different way.
What is provider click efficiency? What does that calculate?
The provider click efficiency is clicking into the provider's website.
Okay.
So then the flight searches by source, which is, as you can see, the embedded widget searches are the light blue. And on the first few days, we haven't done anything to promote it quite yet. So you can see the difference between the Fly My Airport page searches and the embedded widget searches. So when we promote it, that's where it goes up and down. And they can also get to the site from Google searches, if they search for it on Google, or directly on the Fly My Airport website. So it's just kind of the split between.
This one's just another one of, not that important really, it shows the rental cars and things that are purchased as well.
So now, we'll come back to this part, but this is the part that's really, really cool, and I think is going to be really helpful with marketing and air service development, because it's the flight efficiency by consumer search destination. So you can see up top, MCO is our top searched destination, with 8.3% of total searches, 384 provider clicks, and 13 immediate purchases. So the provider click efficiency is the percentage of people that went from Fly My Airport to to the to the airline website, and then the purchase efficiency is 3.4% of that, and then the full funnel efficiency is a combination of the provider click efficiency and the purchase efficiency to kind of navigate how many tickets were sold. So 0.39% of the tickets were an immediate purchase. So then if you keep scrolling down, you can see like the different colors. So the darker the green, and then it gets lighter. So it's more of like a heat map kind of thing. So it shows you the darker the better. So for Atlanta, you could see 20.3% of people went to the provider website, 14.6% of them went to purchase, and then that shows the total amount of tickets booked as a percentage. So it's really cool to see because if you see Charlotte nearby, so it might not necessarily be Charlotte Airport, it might be another airport that's nearby there. 12.9% have looked for this flight, but nobody has clicked to the provider website or booked a flight. So it's kind of cool that we could take this back to the airlines and show them that maybe the times aren't working, or maybe we need a few more options to help get this up from 0, because it's clear that people are interested, but they're not able to get the flight that they're looking for.
So that's some of the stuff we'll really be able to use when we talk to airlines, because again, we have shortened service, but maybe it's at the wrong time, like Alexa said, or maybe we need, other options, things like maybe the connection, we're not hitting the right banks in Charlotte for people to connect, things like that. So that's where we can go back to American and have that conversation. Like, people are coming to our website looking to book, but they're not booking. So why is that? What's the issue there?
How frequently would you think you'd be sitting down with the airlines having those conversations?
We do this, we talk to the airlines typically, we do the conferences about 2 or 3 times a year, and we only try to talk to them individually, probably another 2 or 3 times a year, just either on a Zoom meeting on the phone, or, if there's something really talk about at it, we'll go to headquarters and have a meeting with them at their headquarters. But so, we talk to them probably half a dozen times a year, more formally, and then, whatever else informally,
I'm excited to see this data after a full year and kind of get the full experience of what is here and what we can use, because I feel like 2 months isn't enough to.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
So the next time we'll be sitting down with the airlines, which should be in May. There's the Jumpstart conference that we typically go to, and we probably won't use any of this data for that one, just because we won't have enough yet.
Okay.
But as we continue, we'll continue to put this in.
Yeah, you're still in startup mode too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't really done, like Alexa said, we've done very limited marketing on this so far. It's really just been some social media posts and things. We haven't really, so we start to push it, I think you really start to see the numbers go.
What is the marketing plan?
Marketing plan for this?
Yes.
So we don't want to fully put all of our ads into Fly My Airport. We want to incorporate them into the ads that we currently have. So once we have the widgets on all of our destination pages, then we're going to continue to link our ads to those destination pages, but have this option on there for people to book immediately, as opposed to just the link to the airline website.
Okay, and how are you going to make sure everybody knows this is out there? What's the plan to let people know what Fly My Airport is, how it works?
Yeah, we plan on putting out a press release for it, and we have been putting out social media posts organically, which have gotten a decent amount of traction as well. You can kind of see in the searches when we've posted about it, you can see that people have looked onto it. But a lot of the time, so far it's been getting very positive reaction with people, with just minor, but also working with Fly My Airport as well, having them kind of push that we're also a part of this program. So, but I'm open to suggestions if you have any other ideas. So then if you go over to this graph over here, it's just kind of showing you everything that this says, but in a very simple term. So the searches and then the provider clicks, it just doesn't include the immediate purchases. So then as you can see, the Fly My Airport page's referral site trend, this is gonna look a lot different in a few months when we come back, because we will be including our digital ads, along with, just the digital ads. So, the director are right from our website, Fly My Airport, Google, then the referral is, the direct is from our website or social post, and then the referral is Google, or another like the Fly My Airport homepage, searching for our destination.
That shows that some of that right on here, right?
So then the searches by platform, it's a little interesting because we updated our website because it wasn't as mobile friendly, but as you can see, a lot of over 50% are looking on their computers, and only 47.7% are searching on their phones. And then the purchases, pretty expected. I'm not a person that would buy a plane ticket on my phone. Something just I don't trust about that. I would definitely do it on my computer. I feel
You're
like.
supposed to trust it. It's old people like Paul.
I still do paper.
We call
Can I ask
Yes.
a question?
It's not the website that I don't trust. It's myself. It's easier for me to mess something up.
Don has a question.
Okay.
Is there an age breakdown of people who do it on their phone versus the web?
So there's no. If you scroll down, Darren, right now, it has this section, but we don't have enough data to get that to populate it yet. I'm
The
hoping.
next time we show it, we'll see some of those breakdowns of
Mhm.
age and gender and things.
and the gender, but
But you would only get that data from a purchase, right?
no.
Would you get it just from other settings on that user's, like, from their cookies? Then?
Yeah. Yep.
We can find out everything.
But you wouldn't get it for everybody, because not everybody has their cookies set for that, so you're gonna have to have a lot of data in order to get the age stuff that's gonna be at least relevant.
At a future meeting, we're gonna show you another product that we're using too, that actually will scare you way more than this one does with all the information we can find out now.
That one. Yeah.
It scares me.
It scares me too.
Scott Neely, who used to run Sun Microsystems, had said 15 years ago, you have no privacy anymore, get over it. And he's right. He was right then, and he's more right now.
I think that's basically everything, right, that we're gonna talk about, so.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody else have any questions?
Open it up for questions. Look forward to you coming back when you've got more data and see how all of this plays out. This is going to be very interesting.
I'm very excited.
Yep. And could there be a revenue component for us in the future, or no?
No, because I think the big thing, the way they've set this up is you get the data. That's really.
Okay, that's your revenue piece.
That's still a great tool if you have to.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
We've
priceless.
never gotten that data.
this is the thing we've always said we can't typically get, because you can't get the airlines to tell us anything.
No.
The airlines, so, we say this all the time, we market and we market and we market, and we don't know what happens sometimes. Once, we drive people to our website, great, that's fantastic, and you can see passenger traffic go up, and you think marketing probably has something to do with that, but it's not the be all end all. So this just helps us now to have a little better way to see that our marketing's working, and to be able to see, look at destination and things, and so we need to push a little more money towards X or Y and things like that, because even load factor data, things that we can get, that stuff trails 6 months behind. So by the time we're trying to market to fix that, it's too late.
It's too late.
So.
What does a program like this cost?
It's $2,100 a month.
That's it?
Yeah, I think it was a $4,000 setup charge, and then it's $2,100 a month, which it's worth it.
Yep. Out of the gate, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if we find one destination that we're able to get, push an airline over to get one destination, it easily has paid for itself.
Yep.
In trouble.
No. And as you said, you expected Orlando to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, of course it was, and it will continue to be, forever, as far as I can tell, that's always gonna be our number one.
Because even as Disney's taking its hits, what's the other one down there? Universal has picked up.
Yeah.
When someone starts with an organic search, are you able to see their search terms?
Would
No, I think
when they
just in
start
these
on
metrics.
Google?
Oh, No, if they start on Google and go right to and they go to Fly My Airport and look for.
Like, are you able to see what their Google search terms
Oh,
were?
no.
That's a good question, how they got here. What
Like,
was the
what's
trigger
when they
phrase
start?
or?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well,
Okay.
thank you,
Alexa,
everyone.
appreciate it. Okay, open it up for any new business, old business. Hearing none, we don't have any need for an executive session, do we?
We might for next
Think
meeting,
so.
right?
For next?
We might for exec, yeah, but not.
Okay, sounds good. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion, we're good. Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead and call the Executive Committee of the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority to order. First item on the agenda is roll call, Sylvette.
John Hayes.
Here.
Glenn Reedman.
Here.
Justin Grimshaw. Mike Stershik.
Here.
Paul Anthony.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks. Into the action items. First is approval of the meeting minutes from the January 25th and February 22nd, 2024 meetings. I'd entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mike. Second. Paul looks like he wants to second it.
Thank you, I made eye contact.
That was your mistake. Okay, do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is approval of the Florio Perucci invoices for February of 2024. Entertain a motion to approve.
Strong motion.
Okay, Paul, second. Glenn, any discussion on the invoices? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, discussion items, nominating committee. Larry?
Yes, as last month, we have formed a committee, consists of myself as the chair, along with Frank and Glenn. And we have had some folks come forward. Establish those who would like to have an officer's position. Next month, the month of April, we'll vote and carry through.
Okay, sounds good. So again, if anyone has any interest in serving, make sure you reach out to Larry or one of the committee members. So the game plan is vote next month and seat in May.
Right.
Okay, good. Any questions on nominating
See
committee?
you in April.
I'm sorry, seat in April.
Yep.
Seat on the vote.
Yep.
You're right. Okay, any discussion or questions for Larry? Okay, thank you. Next, and we'll actually defer this to exec session, next is the IT department update. Given that conversation goes into some technical issues in regard to the network that we have here at the airport, we'd like to do that in exec session because that's obviously confidential information. So do we have it? And
It goes to security, like
Security.
public safety and security.
yep, safety and security. So we do not plan on having any votes coming out of that discussion, nor anything else although we're going to defer that to tomorrow. Discussion on bracing.
Yes, but I was just referring to the
To the
IT
Yep.
update as well, that's the security issue.
Sounds good. So before we go into exec, so we can adjourn right out of exec, does anyone have any new business? Okay, hearing none, then I'd entertain a motion to move to executive session for discussion in the IT department update.
So moved.
By Mike, second by Paul. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.